Hello everyone, this is Ryan from Plainfield, New Jersey and the Plainfield Library. In this lesson, we are looking at the citizenship mock interview. So in this lesson, we are preparing you for the citizenship interview and the questions that an officer may ask you. Here's the first couple of questions that the officer will ask you to get the conversation started. Hello. How are you feeling? How is the weather outside? Did you have problems getting here? Have you been waiting a long time to talk to me today? Now, the reasonable response or answer to these questions, if the officer says hello, you say hi. If the officer says, how are you feeling? You say, pretty good. If the officer says, how's the weather outside? You say, it's warm or it's cold, depending on the weather that day. If the officer says, did you have problems getting here? You could say, not really. And if the officer asked you, have you been waiting a long time to talk to me today? You could say, not at all. The next thing that the officer will ask or do in the interview is, okay, let's begin. Please stand up and raise your right hand. At that point, you stand and raise your right hand. The next question the officer asks is, do you promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? The appropriate response to that is yes. The officer says, you may sit down. At that point, you take a seat. The next question the officer says is, do you know what an oath is? Do you know what an oath is? The response could be, yes, it is a promise to tell the truth. At this point, the interviewer would ask you for a type of identification, but here we don't need to see it. Do you know what type of ID you should take to your interview? Well, here are a list of identifications that the government would see as reasonable for this exam. If you have a passport, that is a good government ID. If you have a driver's license, state driver's license, that's very good as well. If you have a state non-driver's license ID, that is also a very good form of identification. And a United States permanent resident card is also a very good form of identification. So any of these forms of identification are appropriate. At that point, the officer says, do you understand why you are here today? Do you understand why you are here today? And the response could be yes, to become an American citizen. The next question could be, why do you want to become an American citizen? Why do you want to become an American citizen? And here, it's personal. Any reason, such as, I would love to vote. More opportunities for me and my family. I love America. Any of those are appropriate responses. The next couple questions the officer asks you is very personal, and it is really giving some personal information. So the question could be, do you still live at the same address? If not, what is your current address? So here you want to give them the appropriate address of where you live, or if you've moved, where that new address is. Next question, what is your name? At that point, give your first and last name. The next question is, when is your birthday? When is your birthday? Here you give them the month, the day, and the year. So if you're born October, you can say 10, the day, 21st, year, 1972. Or you could say October 21st, 1972. Next question, where were you born? To answer that question, give the country where you were born. The next question is, When did you become a permanent resident? When did you become a permanent resident? The appropriate answer for this is just the month and the year. If you do not know the specific day, that's okay. Month and year is good. The next question is, how many times have you left the United States since you became a permanent resident? Here they're just asking for the times, how many times. So if it's 3 times, you could say I left the United States 3 times since becoming a permanent resident. The next question is, were any of your trips for 6 months or more? Were any of your trips for 6 months or more? And you can give them an appropriate response. No, or you could say yes and give them more details on that. Next question, what were your reasons for leaving the country? What were your reasons for leaving the country? An appropriate response to this is, I went to visit my family in the country that you went to. So you could, for example, you could say, I went to visit my mom and dad in Colombia. It's appropriate response. Next question, how long have you lived at your current address? How long have you lived at your current address? Here they're looking for the number of years. So you could say, I've lived at my current address 10 years. Next question is, do you work? Where? So the question is, do you work and where? Appropriate response to this is, do you work? Yes. Or do you work? No. And where, you want to name the company where you actually work. The next question, how many times have you been married? How many times have you been married? So give the number of times that you have been married. The next question could be, is your spouse a US citizen? Is your spouse a US citizen? An appropriate answer is yes or no. Yes, he is. Yes, she is. No, he isn't. No, she isn't. The next question is, what is the total number of children born to you? So how many children have been born to you? And so you can give the appropriate response to that. I'm a mother of 2, or I have 2 children. And so that's a appropriate response to that question. As well as if you're a male, you could say the same thing. Me and my wife have 2 children. I hope that this video helps you in the process of becoming a United States citizen. All the best.